The cameras flashed, the crowd froze, and just like that, Hollywood, or I guess in this case, the music industry, had a brand new obsession. Because another celebrity marriage has quietly come to an end. Welcome to Starscope Report.
Join Jordan and Jamie as they uncover Hollywood drama, music industry shakeups, and viral influencer scandals. From red carpet surprises to social media controversies, we dive deep into the stories behind the fame.
And today, we are taking you into a story that starts like a complete fairy tale, but ends in some of the most dramatic legal filings you will ever see.
Yeah, and if you are loving these Hollywood twists, make sure you are subscribed. We've got even crazier stories ahead in this deep dive.
You really have to picture this first scene, though. It is April 2022. You are standing shoulder to shoulder in this massive crowd at the Masonic Temple in Detroit.
Oh man, I can just imagine the energy in that room.
Right. It is incredibly hot, the lights are blinding, the amps are just buzzing with that signature distortion, and Jack White is tearing through a hometown show.
Hometown shows are always on another level, you know.
Completely. So he starts playing the classic White Stripes track, Hotel Yorba. And the crowd obviously knows absolutely every single word.
Oh, for sure.
But right before he hits the famous lyric, "Let's get married," he stops playing.
Wait, like right in the middle of the song?
Right in the middle of the song. The band drops out entirely, and he pulls his opening act, who also happens to be his girlfriend, Olivia Jean, onto the stage.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and right there, in front of thousands of screaming fans, he proposes.
The sheer theatricality of that is just staggering. I mean, most people would be terrified to do that.
I know, right? And she says yes, but they do not just retreat backstage to celebrate privately.
No, they do not, because that would be too normal.
Yeah, exactly. They bring out the co-founder of his record label to officiate, and they literally get married on that very stage on the spot.
Before the sweat from the concert has even dried. That is wild.
It is. And Olivia Jean actually later told the New York Times that it was the best experience of her life.
Which, I mean, makes sense. It is the ultimate rock and roll fairy tale. Or, well, at least that was the narrative we were all sold at the time.
Right, the narrative. Because if we fast forward to June 3, 2026 in Nashville, Tennessee, the fairy tale is officially over.
Yeah, it really is.
Olivia Jean filed for divorce. And you have probably seen the really scary headlines circulating. People are making their own assumptions because the internet is absolutely buzzing over the incredibly dramatic and, frankly, terrifying language used in her court filings.
Because going from this impromptu rock concert wedding to rigid adversarial legal documents in just 4 years is like a whiplash-inducing shift.
Totally.
We see a phrase like unsafe and improper conduct trending on social media,
Yeah.
and we immediately assume the absolute worst.
Yeah.
And then we just move on to the next scandal.
But today, we are actually going to decode that scary-sounding legalese that fuels all this public speculation.
Yeah, we pulled from a massive stack of sources for this one. We are looking at music journalism from The Guardian and Alternative Nation, the actual Tennessee legal guidelines from Legal Aid of East Tennessee.
Which are super complicated, by the way.
Oh, incredibly complicated. We also looked at relationship analysis from therapist Figs O'Sullivan, and we even deep dived into the fan forums on Reddit to see the public reaction.
Because we really want to unpack what actually happens when business, fandom, and romance violently collide. And that is not even the wildest part. Later in this deep dive, we will talk about the shocking twist nobody saw coming with the Tennessee legal system.
But to understand any of that, you really cannot understand how far these two have fallen without understanding their deeply entangled history first.
Right, because Olivia Jean's origin story is fascinating. At 13 years old, she was literally running a White Stripes fan page.
At 13.
Yes, 13. It was called Olivia's Peppermint Palace.
Which, I mean, establishes a really crucial baseline here. She was not just a casual listener who happened to meet a musician later in life.
Exactly.
She was a dedicated, heavily invested super fan during her most formative teenage years.
Yeah.
Jack White's music was central to her identity long before they ever crossed paths.
And then, at 19, she takes this massive swing. She goes to a gig in Detroit where Jack White's supergroup, The Dead Weather, is playing.
Okay.
And she literally leaves a homemade demo CD near the tour bus. Like, she laid a path of CDs leading directly to the side door of the venue.
I mean, that is such a bold move.
It is so bold. And miraculously, it actually works. Jack White finds it, he listens to it, and he is impressed.
Which is crazy because, to give some context to how rare that is, Major artists are usually shielded from unsolicited demos for legal reasons. They just throw them away.
Right, but he was intrigued enough to invite her down to his studio, Third Man Records, in Nashville.
And that single act of dropping off a demo completely altered the trajectory of her life.
Totally. He brought her into his inner circle. He formed an all-female gothic garage rock band around her called the Black Bells. And when that band ran its course, he became the primary producer for her solo albums, records like Bathtub Love Killings, Night Owl, and Raven Ghost.
So he essentially became the architect of her entire professional career.
He did. Which makes me look back at this fairy tale narrative we were talking about earlier with a lot of skepticism.
Oh, for sure.
Look at the structural reality here. He was her literal idol when she was 13. She is currently 36, and he's 50.
Right.
He is not just a collaborator. He owns the label she records for. Isn't that essentially setting the stage for an impossible power imbalance right from day one?
Well, let's look at it through the lens of music history first, right? There is this long, highly romanticized tradition of creative partnerships fueling great art.
Like Fleetwood Mac.
Exactly, Fleetwood Mac or Sonic Youth. The idea of the established visionary artist discovering a raw, hidden talent and lifting them up, that dynamic of creator and muse feels deeply romantic at the time.
Yeah, I get the romance of it. I really do. But a creative partnership is one thing. Marrying the guy who controls your master recordings is another.
Oh, completely.
If you are on a major label, you have an HR department, right? You have different executives managing different aspects of your career. But at a boutique indie label like Third Man Records, Jack White is the ultimate authority.
Right, he owns the studio, the pressing plant, the storefront, everything.
Exactly.
And that is where the romance hits a brick wall. When your partner is also your boss, your mentor, and the sole reason for your professional platform, the lines of autonomy just vanish.
They really do.
In a healthy marriage, you strive for an equal partnership. But when one person holds the keys to the other's entire career infrastructure, and there's a 14-year age gap on top of a prior idol and fan dynamic, establishing true equality is a nearly insurmountable uphill battle.
It is like trying to build a house on a foundation where one side is 15 feet taller than the other. Eventually, it is going to tilt.
Yeah, that is a great way to put it.
And that tilt brings us to the abrupt end, June 3, 2026. Olivia files for divorce in Nashville, and this is where the internet lost its collective mind.
She didn't just check the standard box, right?
No, she didn't just check irreconcilable differences. The court documents state that Jack is guilty of inappropriate marital conduct, which makes further cohabitation unsafe and improper.
And that phrasing, unsafe and improper, is entirely what caused the public reaction to be so visceral.
Because the internet sees unsafe and improper and instantly pictures a true crime documentary. The legal terminology acts as a megaphone for rumors.
Totally.
People hear unsafe and they automatically assume physical danger, profound scandal, or abuse. But before we get to the legal translation of those words, we have to look at the financial and professional severing that is happening at the exact same time.
Right. What else is in the filing?
She is asking for spousal support, explicitly claiming dependence on his income. She wants a formal marital dissolution agreement, and she is requesting to remain on his life insurance policy.
Which underscores the very power imbalance we were just discussing. The fact that she is citing financial dependence highlights that despite having her own solo career and multiple albums, the economic reality of her life was still entirely tied to him.
And she is asking for a marital dissolution agreement. My assumption is that is not just a basic split of checking accounts, right?
No, definitely not.
It is asking the court to enforce a hard, formalized division of assets rather than leaving it up to a handshake.
Exactly. A marital dissolution agreement in a high net worth divorce, especially one involving the music industry, is incredibly complex. It means untangling royalty streams, publishing rights, and determining who owns the master recordings of her albums that were produced under his label.
Wow.
When she unplugs from the marriage, she is simultaneously unplugging from the infrastructure that has supported her entire adult career.
And you can actually see this playing out in real time. If you look at the Reddit fan forums, specifically the r/Jack White subreddit, the superfans noticed immediately that Olivia unfollowed all the Third Man Records Instagram pages.
Oh, they catch everything.
They really do. She completely wiped her digital association with his label. The personal split is mirroring a total professional split.
She is intentionally burning the bridge to her own label. Stay tuned and hit that subscribe button so you do not miss what is coming next, because we are about to decode the scary-sounding legalese behind this.
Yeah, we really need to look at the Tennessee legal code to understand why she used such explosive language in her filing. The phrase unsafe and improper feels like a smoking gun to the public, but the law operates on a completely different frequency.
Right. If you consult the guidelines from Legal Aid of East Tennessee, you find out that Tennessee is a state that still allows both no-fault and fault-based divorces.
Which is wild to me. I always thought irreconcilable differences was just the standard default everywhere now.
It is the most common route, yeah. A no-fault divorce essentially means both parties agree that the marriage is broken beyond repair. But here is the critical catch in Tennessee.
Okay, what is it?
For a no-fault divorce to proceed, both parties must agree on all the core issues. They have to agree on the division of assets, the spousal support, everything. It requires 100% cooperation from both sides.
Oh, wow. So if he doesn't want to agree to her financial terms, or if he just wants to drag his feet out of spite, a no-fault divorce stalls out completely.
Precisely.
Which explains why she filed a fault-based claim alongside it. It is a strategic legal lever.
By filing a fault-based claim and citing inappropriate marital conduct, she can legally force the divorce forward, even if Jack White contests it, or if he refuses to sign off on an irreconcilable differences agreement. It takes the veto power out of his hands.
So she is ensuring the train leaves the station whether he wants to be on it or not.
Exactly.
But what about that terrifying phrase? So if it doesn't necessarily mean physical danger, I am assuming inappropriate conduct is just a legal catch-all, like checking a box that says we fight about money too much or he is emotionally checked out, just so a judge will actually hear the case.
It is exactly that. The law hasn't really caught up to the nuances of modern relationships. Inappropriate marital conduct is a modern umbrella term that replaced archaic legal language like cruel and inhuman treatment.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and as relationship therapist Figs O'Sullivan pointed out in his analysis of this exact dynamic, this term does not automatically equate to a scandalous affair or physical abuse. It covers almost anything that causes the other spouse distress.
So when she says it makes cohabitation unsafe and improper, that might just legally translate to, it is incredibly toxic for my mental health to live with this person and I need out.
Yes. We have to remember that court documents are a rigid, bureaucratic framework. The court doesn't have a checkbox for "we drifted apart" and "the power dynamic of you being my boss destroyed our intimacy."
Right, they don't have a nuanced button.
No, they only offer inappropriate marital conduct. It is the box you check when you need to prove fault without airing a highly specific grievance in the initial public filing.
The mechanics of what happens next are honestly just as fascinating and a little bizarre to me. Because Jack and Olivia seemingly have no minor children together, Tennessee law requires a minimum 60-day waiting period before a hearing can even happen.
A full 2 months.
Yeah. But if Jack chooses not to respond to the filing at all, if he just ignores it out of spite or denial, she cannot just get a default judgment instantly.
Right, because under Tennessee's fault-based rules, if the divorce is contested or ignored, she would actually need to bring 2 witnesses to court to finalize it.
Think about the emotional weight of that mechanism for a second. One witness has to be able to back up her specific story about why she wants the divorce, like a friend or a family member who knows the intimate details of the inappropriate conduct.
That is so invasive.
And the second has to be a character witness to testify to the judge that she is a truthful person. You are literally being forced to put your private life on a witness stand, drag your friends into a courtroom just to get out of a contract.
It turns private grief into a public, bureaucratic performance. And this is exactly what therapist Figs O'Sullivan emphasizes when looking at the public reaction to these filings.
What does he say?
He says the public drastically oversimplifies relationship breakdowns because the legal system feeds us these dramatic binary terms. We read a headline with the word unsafe, and we immediately want a clear villain. We want to know who cheated, who lied, who threw the plate.
Right. We want a cinematic ending to match the cinematic wedding.
Exactly. But a marriage rarely ends because of one isolated villainous act. It is almost always a slow erosion. It is a long-term pattern of emotional disconnection, compounded by financial and professional stress, that finally reaches a breaking point.
And we really cannot look at the specific breaking point in a vacuum. We have to contextualize this divorce within Jack White's broader history, because we are going to look at his past relationships. And believe me, there is a repeating pattern here that you have to hear to believe.
Yeah, this is his 3rd marriage to a musician. His first marriage was to Meg White, his bandmate in the White Stripes.
Which is a wildly complex dynamic in its own right, because they famously pretended to be brother and sister to the press for
I
years.
still remember when that came out.
Right. They claimed it was to keep the media focused on their music rather than their romantic relationship.
But ironically, lying about being siblings just made the public and the media infinitely more obsessed with their dynamic.
Yeah.
The scrutiny was relentless.
It really was.
Then, his second marriage was to the British model and musician Karen Elson. They actually met on the set of a White Stripes music video, and they got married in a canoe on the Amazon River.
Looking at Jack White's marital history is honestly like looking at a band's discography. Each relationship starts out as this highly produced, highly publicized, seemingly perfect collaboration. The secret siblings, the Amazon canoe wedding, the onstage Detroit proposal.
The public presentation is always deeply theatrical and curated, but the breakup albums, the ends of these relationships, keep getting more complicated, more legally entangled, and much darker.
Yeah, look at the Karen Elson split. When they broke up after about 6 years, they initially made headlines for throwing a very public, supposedly amicable divorce party.
Oh, I remember the invitations for that. It was peak indie rock cool.
Totally. They described it as a celebration of their friendship. But it did not stay cool for long.
No, it did not. That supposedly amicable split eventually devolved into a highly contentious, very messy custody battle over their 2 children.
It got really bad.
It escalated to the point where Karen Elson secured a temporary restraining order against Jack. She alleged in court filings that he exhibited controlling, aggressive behavior toward her and the people in her professional life.
Wow.
The transition from a divorce party to a restraining order shows how quickly the curated public image can collapse under the weight of an actual separation.
And what really stands out to me in all of this is the immense toll the public spotlight takes on the individuals involved, particularly the women in the background.
Oh, absolutely.
Because the public feels a deep, almost aggressive sense of entitlement to a rock star's life, and that entitlement unfairly paints the partners in a really harsh light.
The fan dynamic is incredibly potent here, and it operates as a secondary pressure cooker on the marriage.
Olivia Jean has been very open about her struggles with severe social anxiety. She has told interviewers that performing live is incredibly difficult for her, but she pushes through it because she loves making music.
Right.
Yet her authenticity, her talent, and her motives have constantly been questioned by Jack White's fan base. When she first came on the scene with Third Man Records, people scrutinized her. When the marriage happened, the scrutiny intensified.
And now that the divorce is happening, if you look at the Reddit threads, the reactions are intensely polarized and, frankly, brutal.
It's absolutely brutal. And we are not taking sides here, obviously. We are just reporting what is in the source material. But you really have these factions forming online.
Yeah. On one hand, you have fans heavily criticizing her, essentially reducing her entire career and life to being a groupie whose ultimate goal was just to become Jack White's wife.
Which is so dismissive.
They point out the 14-year age gap, the fact she was a teenage fan who dropped off a demo, and they use her own origin story to dismiss her as an opportunist who couldn't make it on her own.
Which completely ignores the fact that she wrote and recorded multiple albums.
Exactly.
But then on the other side of that same forum, you have fans fiercely defending her. And what is interesting is they are drawing direct historical parallels.
Right. They are comparing the toxic hate being directed at Olivia to the intense, relentless pressure that historically caused Meg White's extreme anxiety.
Which ultimately led to Meg stepping away from music entirely and the end of the White Stripes.
It is a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
The fans love the music, but they fiercely guard the musician, often actively destroying the people closest to him in the process. It forces these women into an impossible lose-lose situation.
Because if Olivia stays quiet and accepts whatever terms are offered, she is perceived as weak or just a passenger in her own life.
Right.
But if she files for divorce and uses the necessary legal tools to protect herself, like citing inappropriate marital conduct to bypass a stalled, no-fault divorce, she is suddenly framed by the public as a vindictive opportunist trying to destroy a rock legend.
The public narrative completely strips her of her agency and her humanity. It forgets that she is a 36-year-old woman trying to extricate herself from a complex 4-year marriage that was deeply entangled with her entire professional identity.
Exactly.
If your boss, your mentor, and your husband are the exact same person, a clean break is practically impossible.
You cannot just pack a bag and go stay at your mom's house. You have to untangle record contracts, master recording ownership, life insurance policies, and royalty streams, all while navigating a broken heart and a fan base dissecting your every single move.
Which brings us fully back to the reality of the legal documents themselves. These filings give us structural clues about the separation, like Tennessee's 60-day waiting period or the strategic use of fault-based clauses to prevent the divorce from stalling.
Right.
But we have to recognize that the phrase inappropriate marital conduct is often just a legal lever pulled to ensure the dissolution of a contract. It is a blunt instrument. It is not an objective, holistic summary of a 4-year relationship or a 13-year professional partnership.
So we started this deep dive with a fairy tale, a spontaneous, romantic proposal on a stage in Detroit, bathed in feedback and applause.
And we watched that fairy tale dissolve into a stark legal filing in Nashville, citing unsafe and improper conduct.
We decoded the Tennessee laws that mandate this severe language just to get the bureaucratic wheels turning, bypassing the roadblock of a contested no-fault split.
And we contextualize this within a larger pattern of a rock star whose deeply intertwined personal and professional relationships inevitably face the crushing weight of public scrutiny and industry entanglement.
The overarching through line here is the profound danger of that entanglement. When fandom becomes a career and a career becomes a marriage, the unspooling of those threads requires a level of legal and emotional heavy lifting that the public rarely sees or understands. We only ever see the headline.
Which leaves us with a final thought to ponder as we wrap up this deep dive.
Yeah, think about this. We live in an era where every legal document is digitized, scraped, and instantly accessible to the public within hours of being filed. Anyone can read the most painful bureaucratic details of a stranger's life from their phone while waiting in line for coffee.
It is wild when you really think about it.
So do the rigid, inherently dramatic words required by our court systems, words like unsafe and improper conduct, do they actively prevent us from allowing public figures to have private, nuanced breakups?
That is a great question.
By forcing complex, gray human relationships to fit into simple black and white legal checkboxes, are we structurally guaranteeing that every celebrity divorce becomes a scandalous spectacle just to satisfy our own curiosity?
Think about that the next time you see a bold-faced headline about a broken marriage. Sometimes, the loudest words in a court document aren't a declaration of war. They're just a desperate attempt to quietly turn off the stage lights and finally go home.
You have been listening to Starscope Report, where Jordan and Jamie uncover the stories shaping Hollywood, music, and pop culture. Thanks for tuning in, and do not forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining.